Our first keynote this morning is from someone who I only really got to know over a few conversations last year. It all started out with a tweet about all-male panels, which, I'm not a fan of. And if you know anything about me and my drive for D&I and things like that, then hopefully I am trying to live what I talk about. But that tweet about manels, as they're to be known, resonated with me, something I think we've clearly got a problem with in events. And so I looked at, who is this Amy Kean? And it turns out that she is a founder of this organisation called DICE, Diversity and Inclusivity in Conference and Events. And I knew immediately that I wanted us to have some kind of involvement in that. I wanted us to be part of that or to get that certification. And I'm really proud to say that this event and the Light event last year is a DICE recommended event for inclusivity and diversity. I know that we've still got work to do on that. Thanks. Thank you very much. I am genuinely proud of that because there are criteria involved, and you have to meet the criteria and demonstrate what you're doing. So I'm proud that we have that. And it is the standard really for all future events. We need to make sure that we hear a range of voices here. So we'll continue to work on that. But it's not about Marketed Live now, it's about Amy. So Amy is the founder of a creative experimentation company, 6 Things Impossible. And aside from her whole attitude, which I think is wonderful, and certainly spot on for where we are today, one of the reasons she's here is because of a topic that she mentioned on a LinkedIn post of all things. And I thought, ooh, this would be really great for Marketed Live. People here would really get into this. She's one of LinkedIn's top global voices in media and marketing. She's also a lecturer at Kingston University, an author, and a poet. And this is exactly what you need to start Marketed Live. So please welcome Amy Kean.
Right, oh my God. This is the first stage I've been on in like 2 years. And it feels really nice, but I thought it was going to feel weird. It's so nice that we're all together. I go down. Okay, am I allowed to swear? Oh. Okay, sorry if anyone's about, I won't do it much. So it's so amazing that we're all together, like it's so lovely to be here. Hello, Nottingham. We're always saying in marketing, and that was also amazing, all those insights, by the way. I thoroughly concur with most of them. We always say in marketing that we're supposed to be more human. So in the spirit of being completely human, full disclosure, it was my birthday at the weekend, and it was a very significant birthday, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'll let you guess. But I had a 3-day party in the Cotswolds with 30 of my friends, and I came straight from that party to here. So, and I'm okay, I'm totally fine, but my voice is going. So if I start squeaking, that's not a normal thing I do. That's just why. But I'm hoping that the energy, I can feel some lovely energy in the room, and my passion for this subject will get me through. In fact, it's not even really a subject. I feel like it's a movement. I feel like it's a movement we should all be a part of. And this presentation is kind of the result of my entire life's work because I couldn't help it. So I'm going to talk to you today about why I think we in the marketing community need to say a big F you to normality and channel our weirdness. I don't mind if you heckle, I don't mind if you shout at me. In fact, I'd kind of love it because it would show that you're listening and interested. But I do have one request. Please, I know you've all got workbooks and I'm assuming you've all got like pens and pencils. One thing that I would really, really love you to do during my presentation is to doodle. Don't worry about being distracted, my voice is loud, you'll be able to hear it, don't worry about that. But I would really love it if you could just sort of mindlessly doodle while you're listening to me. This presentation is kind of made for doodling, so let's see where you get to at the end. A bit of interaction. Can anyone tell me what this is? You sure that's what you're going with? That's what you're going with. It's a toaster. Nice. Who said that? Me. Ah, we're friends already. So it's a toaster, right? Yeah. Okay. So this is the problem. This is the problem that we're dealing with, which is the problem that I want to talk to you about today. This isn't a toaster. And I'm going to set the scene regarding the problem with a video.
Now more than ever, we wish to take advantage of you. Here at every car company, for some reason, we understand that the last thing you need right now is a new car. So we just wanted to say, we care about you. And if you don't buy our new crossover, we'll kill your dad.
We here in this company wish to make love to all of you. You're all invited to my house when this is over.
We've been there for you, through thick and thin. When you called our customer support and listened to way too loud dog shit quality hold music for 3 hours, we were there for you. When we spent money on this advertisement instead of giving more to our underpaid employees, we were there for you. And when our CEO bought his 4th yacht, we were there for you then too. And in these uncertain times, what kind of company would we be if we weren't there for you when you needed us most? But don't take it from us. Take it from this celebrity who charged us $200,000 for a 10-second one-take message he filmed on his phone.
Hey, it's me. I was the lead on that show you didn't recommend to anybody. Hey, but listen, we're in this fight together, okay? Me and you are the same person, except for the millions of dollars and all the hookers that I've killed.
For 80 years now, our company has been keeping you connected with those you love most. And in these trying times, we'll be here to do what we do best and be sure you stay connected.
Mom, can you hear me?
Hello?
Mom, you don't have to yell. I'm right here.
What?
Your safety is our #1 concern. So as we adjust to life with COVID-19, our checkout lines are guaranteed to have at least 6 feet between customers. However, we are temporarily not accepting cash, so make sure to put your hands all over our filthy debit machine. Hey, it's us, your phone and internet provider. So who better to talk about your mental health? Truth is, we've always cared about you.
How are our consumers?
Sir, some aren't doing too good.
The shit. They're all I've been able to think about.
When we wanted to find a way to make our products quicker and for less, we outsourced that labor to third world countries so real people like you and me wouldn't have to do all that gross, sweaty work. You're welcome.
I love healthcare workers, but I hate racists.
No doubt you will have noticed over the last 18 months, 2 years, that about 80% of ads are exactly the same. They've all been exactly the same. Not just related to COVID, but this kind of preachy tone that brands are embracing relating to mental health, related to anti-racism, related to the climate change, and fine, but the problem is that consumers are noticing now. They're noticing that brands in the main are all starting to talk the same, act the same. So it's not just us that's noticing it. This is a real problem in the minds of the people who buy our stuff. So I think this is a massive issue because I think we're in the midst of a normality crisis. And I'm actually I'm going to tell a few jokes along the way, but I'm being completely serious now. I truly believe that the ad industry is facing the biggest crisis of normality it's ever faced. And the reason why I think this is an issue, there are a couple of psychologists that conducted some research a few years ago to try and understand why everybody craves normality so much. Why do we feel like we need to be normal? And what they found was that our brains have been socially groomed so much that we automatically associate being normal with being good, being normal with being morally correct, which is why everybody does it. And this isn't a new social phenomenon. This has happened since the dawn of time, which is why slavery and child labour were able to thrive, because even though they were completely abhorrent, they were normal. And our obsession, I mean, obviously you've all heard this phrase. Who said it? Quite aggressive, I'm sorry. Our obsession with the new normal is making things so much worse, because in the business world, we seem to be desperate to be told what normal is going to be. And so in an era when every brand believes they need to be good and they need to have purpose, what they're all doing is trying to fit in, and there's a massive lack of originality, which is really what I want to talk to you about today. Hey, I completely forgot to introduce myself. I'm Amy Kean, and first and foremost, I'm weird. I do a lot of different things, so I've worked in advertising for 17 years all over the world. I worked in Asia for quite some time. I run a creative experimentation company. I am a poet for my sins. What else do I do? I dabble in activism. I'm a journalist. I'm cultures editor for a magazine called Shots. But also, I'm weird. And I don't know that I could even be particularly normal if I tried. But the thing is, weird is a really weird word because it's not particularly nice. Show of hands, who in the room considers themselves to be weird or has been? Oh, I found my people. That's really nice. It's not always a nice word because weird is a word that is kind of used to other, something that you don't understand. That's weird, he's weird, you're weird. Sometimes we'll use it to describe a phenomenon or a vision or a character. But I don't particularly self-define as weird, it's just I've always been called it. Ever since I was a child, peculiar, strange, odd, whatever. And for a long time, and again, like maybe you and some of you in the room have also felt this, for a very long time I hated it because it's really hard to change something that's so very, very you, and resisted it for a really long time. And then I decided about 10 or so years ago, I can't really change. I don't want to, so I'm just going to own it. I'm just going to own my weirdness. And so in the process or pursuit of owning my weirdness, I wrote a book, which is why I asked if I could swear. I wrote a book, a best-selling book, in fact, called The Little Girl Who Gave Zero Fucks. And it's a book about being brave enough to be yourself. And I know that sounds silly, but it is actually an act of bravery to be totally, wholeheartedly yourself. It's an illustrated fairy tale, which is about what would happen if we, decided to worry less and be true to ourselves. It's an amazing Christmas present and birthday gift for... I wasn't going to say this, I got so much hate for this book. I've been in the Daily Mail accused of whitewashing children. It's not for children, by the way, it's for adults. I was in The Spectator, I was on Joe Rogan's podcast. There's a lot of hate thrown at me for writing this book, but never mind. I truly believe that we should all be experiments. That's like my mantra or belief. Every single one of us should be living, breathing, walking, talking, crying, testing, learning humans, because how sad if you don't continually get to know yourself. I think it's really important that we should have that mindset, particularly when we work in marketing and we're in the business of communicating with people every single day. And I'm not the only person who thinks this. I'm about to compare myself to an iconic French artist, if you don't mind. But one of my heroes is a guy called John Dubuffet. Has anyone heard of him? He was the kind of founder, leader of a movement in the early 1940s called Art Brut. Has anyone heard of Art Brut? Translated into English, it means like raw art, unfiltered art. And he created this movement that still exists today, and it's magnificent. Dubuffet was notoriously anti-cultural conditioning. So he resisted, famously, all of these kind of fictional norms that are placed upon us and tried to create a movement that was completely original and anti those norms and anti the snobbery and inaccessibility of the art world at that time, but it continues even now. And one of my favourite quotes is from Dubuffet. He said, "Supposing that there is something like normality, there is only one way to be normal and 100 million ways not to be normal." And I hope you find that quote as exhilarating as I do. I find that concept really, really exciting. And this is what I'm going to try and guide you through today, how not being normal is better. and potentially morally correct. Because if we do that, really what we can achieve as marketers is pure creative originality, the stuff that's really, really lacking in our industry right now. The radical antithesis of industry average is what I think we should be aiming for. And I'm going to show you how, I'm not just going to preach. I do want to clarify that when I talk about weirdness, I'm not talking about the ridiculous kind of cartoon parody, kind of Blackadder-esque running through the streets with a nappy on your head, shouting "Wibble," talking in riddles, although people can do that if they want, but that's not what I'm talking about. And also, what I'm not doing is trivializing mental health in any way. My academic background is psychosociology, so I have a huge amount of respect for the human brain. What I'm talking about is weirdness in a cultural context, in a social context, fitting in. And so I have my own definition, which you won't find in the dictionary, but I've kind of created it because I quite like it. My definition of weirdness is something unmissable that doesn't make sense. Slightly more positive than you'd normally get, I think. And there's a few different reasons why I really love this definition that I've created. Mostly when we talk about weirdness, it's because it's something different that we don't understand, but that we have to see or experience. Often, weirdness, when it's not deviant, and again, I'm not talking about the deviant stuff, is really challenging to us. And not many people like to be challenged. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable as well, seeing something weird, seeing something that you don't quite immediately grasp. And this is within the context of an increasingly clinical society where we self-regulate in more and more ways. I would say largely due to social media, which I think is the worst thing to ever happen to humankind. But, each to their own. But there's a problem within the advertising industry as a result of a lack of weirdness. So this is the problem that we're facing. One of my wonderful peers, Faris Jacob, truly believes that the advertising industry has become completely formulaic, just templates. So he says that as a result of agencies just chasing technology, what this has resulted in is just a series of kind of meaningless prototypes. Occasionally, we all know this, fakes that get entered into Kean just for the kudos. That's what's happening. Everything is becoming really formulaic. I'm going to give you an example. Hope no one in the room was responsible for this, and if you were, let's chat. Here's an example. I don't even know if I need to narrate this. Who's seen this? Can you see it? Yeah, it's big. You haven't seen this. So, obviously, there's quite a lot of internet chatter about cryptocurrency at the moment. Brands didn't really need to jump on that bandwagon. No consumer is crying out for them to fulfill that role. But what Pringles and actually quite a few other brands have done in their desperate quest to fit in amongst the internet population, they've created a crypto crisp. Pringles have created a crypto crisp. And I don't want to be harsh, I'd love to celebrate amazing work, but I don't think I've ever seen anything produced by a brand that was less imaginative. So I think that's really serious. But there's various other reasons why advertising has become formulaic. Fear. How many creatives are in the room? Some people just don't really want to. Creatives are currently, I'm afraid, kind of living in fear of any kind of backlash to any kind of risks that they might take. There was a recent survey conducted by an innovations company called And Us that found that, interestingly, 34% of UK workers are living in fear at work every single day. They're terrified at work every single day. I believe this is even worse in the creative industry, where it's really easy for someone like Susan or Steve with a Twitter account to tell you how disgusted they are with you and how disgusted they are with the work that you've done. This is one example that happened really recently. Did anybody see this? You might disagree with me, but this was a bus that Channel 4 created to promote their show Naked Attraction. There was outrage, a huge amount of outrage. This is disgusting. How dare you? How could you? What were you thinking? And why? What do you think was the main reason for the outrage? It's because, oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. The outrage was because occasionally, sometimes children sit at the front of the bus. I think I think that's completely irrational. Like, who cares? And also, they had to apologise. They had to withdraw the buses. So creatives, I actually think it's quite a punchy, creative idea, and it was only going to be live for 2 weeks. Who cares? But increasingly, it's making creatives really, really scared of putting their necks out there at all. Also, of course, another big issue is brand wagons. Did I call it brand wagons? Yes. Kind of aligning ourselves with causes, what I like to call lipstick activism. As Paul said, I do dabble in activism. I take it very, very seriously. And so when brands try to align themselves with various events in the cultural calendar without much substance behind it, I find it quite upsetting, actually. And this is a perfect example, Marks and Spencer's LGBT sandwich, which I love this quote here. I don't know if you can read it. The lesbian community just completely got thrown under the bus because all they get is lettuce. But increasingly, this also is becoming meaningless. And then finally, social media conditioning is forcing us to all try and act the same way. We say the same words, we use the same phrases. We know what gets liked, so we do that. This is a tweet from an industry influencer. I'm not going to say who. What does it say? The biggest benefit of exercise isn't your physical health, it's your mental health. Look at that engagement. Look at that unbelievable engagement. This is it. This is the most compelling text that we can think of. Really? Like, where's the creativity and where's the inspiration? And so I do feel that social media conditioning is making us all very, very boring. That's my rant over, by the way. I'm going to get more positive now. I believe that creativity genuinely should be like a seance where you summon your weirdest self, the self where you play, the self where you dare to be different. But we need to allow each other to get there. And why do I believe that creativity is like a seance summoning your weirdest self? Well, there's a shit ton of science that states and proves that the weirder you are, the more creative and original you are. So there's a load of studies to back this up, which is why it's so important. So there's a Harvard psychologist called Shelley Carson who's conducted a number of different social experiments to associate creative thinking with latent inhibitions. So latent inhibitions are when you have low latent inhibitions, you allow more stuff to enter your brain. So you don't really filter based on what you're doing at the time, and you don't really ignore things that your brain might tell you is irrelevant. You let everything go into your head, and you're able to craft crazy associations with various different things. So someone with low latent inhibitions would associate a chocolate bar with a gorilla, for example. So Carson conducted some research a couple of years ago, her most recent research, and found that those of us who are most creative and original are 7 times more likely to have low latent inhibitions. And you can train yourself to do this. I'm going to give you an example that Carson provided. So a person with low latent inhibitions will not only see a yellow desk lamp, they may also think of bananas. SpongeBob SquarePants eating a banana, or possibly concoct a whole dissertation in their head about whether or not SpongeBob likes to eat bananas or how he could get them down in the ocean. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. How am I doing for time? Because it says 128 minutes, and I don't think I've been talking. Okay, amazing. I was like, I've been talking for 2 hours. So when I saw this psychological study, I was like, shit, it felt like an epiphany. So about a year ago, I decided to conduct my own social experiment, just to see what that weird creative mind looked like, felt like. I wanted to interrogate it further, so I put an ad on Instagram and asked people a paid ad, and asked people who self-defined as weird to get in touch, and I would pay them a small amount of money to take part in a small piece of research. So quite a few people got in touch from all over the country. I wanted like a nice breadth of territories represented. A load of people got in touch, and what I asked them to do was draw me the inside of their mind. You can have a go now if you want, and I'll just keep talking. I'll tread water until you've done it, because it's a really interesting exercise. Sometimes it's sad. I asked them to draw the inside of their mind. No parameters, no additional brief, just draw it. Use anything you want, use any materials you want, just draw me the inside of your mind. And very quickly, I got a load of really interesting, lovely images. Very quickly, I noticed a pattern. I'm going to let you think for a second about what you think that pattern might have been. And I should have known that I would get it. It didn't occur to me, but once I started to see the images come in, I was like, oh shit, yeah, of course. So I had people of all ages. Did you notice I did give you a second there? That was like a dramatic pause. I had people of all ages responding to this. So as young as 4, and then people in their 50s and their 60s. What I noticed was that the younger of my research cohort drew massive, beautiful, colourful, ridiculous landscapes. They drew unicorns, they drew shopping trolleys, they drew, you know, everything was colourful and haphazard and made no sense, but it was glorious. So I'll show you an example. So this was from a 4-year-old, rainbows and silliness, and just apparently she really enjoyed the process. This is from a 19-year-old. This is just wild, but I'm obsessed with it. It's just gorgeous. There was no structure, no rhyme nor reason for what she drew, but it's gorgeous. But as people got older, as my respondents got older, the images started to become more rigid. This was from a 20-something. She drew her brain as a game where different thoughts kind of battle against each other. They fight with each other. But as people got older, it started to get slightly more negative, to be honest. So people drew a brain, and they would draw really negative words: anxiety, grief, stress, fear of being found out. And remember, these are people who self-defined as weird. I asked for weird people. And so what I noticed was that as these people got older, their weirdness started to feel like a burden, because society had been telling them for years and years and years that their weirdness wasn't okay. Hence all the words and the struggles and the battles and the thoughts, etc. So when I saw this, and I've got loads more of these, but they all kind of follow the same pattern. When I saw this, I decided to go on a bit of a weird pilgrimage to see how people could be happy and weird at the same time. And as part of my weird pilgrimage, I met this guy.
My name's Stephen Wright. I'm the creator of the House of Dreams Museum in East Dulwich in South London. Welcome to my house and the House of Dreams. I began the project in 1998, all those years ago. The house is about legacy. It's about wanting to leave something behind. So we have these big sort of columns of toys and colour. I love colour, but everything is here for a reason. It isn't to fill a space. So, you know, I can tell you virtually where everything is from, because that's why it's here. I want to recall the memory of being wherever I've been when I bought them. During lockdown, I've certainly had a lot of time on my hands to make more work, which is what I've done really. So this one was the first piece that I produced under lockdown, and I think he's fab. I like his false teeth. So this is Michael, my partner, who's been very supportive during lockdown, I have to say. I think I'd have gone mad without Michael's support.
Well, I think we supported each other.
This pot here we made together, didn't we?
Yeah, it's one of the first things that we actually did during lockdown, and it was just a very plain concrete pot.
It was an interesting experience working together.
Yes.
We both work in different ways.
We were both very patient, I think.
Well, you had to learn to be patient.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of writing in this house as well, and it really reflects my life. It's about my life. It is a diary of my life. February the 12th is when I had my first injection. I couldn't wait. I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to having it done. Under normal circumstances, we have one open day a month. People often ask me when they come to the House of Dreams, what's my favourite object? That's very hard to answer. But I suppose one of my favourites is the doll with the squashed face over here, which I bought from Deptford Market for £1. It's not an easy project. If I wanted an easy life, I wouldn't be doing this.
You call it a project, you think it'll be finished?
No, the House of Dreams will never be finished. I will be finished before the House of Dreams is finished.
What do you think? Who said that? So relatively disrespectfully, I googled weird shit London and found a whole list of things to do to try and immerse myself in the other side of life. But what's really interesting, so I went there, I interviewed Stephen. When you go into that space, it feels remarkable. To go into an unfiltered space that's so colourful and brilliant and random was really quite, it was really life affirming. And I interviewed him and asked him if he was happy. And he said, yes, I'm very happy. Interestingly, he created the House of Dreams as kind of in response to his grief. So within the period of 12 months, both his parents and his partner died. And so he created the House of Dreams as a way to kind of work through his grief, which is even more beautiful. But I said to him, what is it that makes you so different? He hates the word weird. He would never use the word weird. He finds it really negative. But I said to him, what is it about you that's so different, do you think? And he said, I've just given myself permission to be different. And I consider myself lucky in that respect. My parents always encouraged me to do that. The best gift you can give someone is to let them be themselves. And when he said that, oh my God, I cried because I'd never heard it quite articulated in that way before. So he talked a lot about being an outsider. He's gay. He talked about his sexuality growing up. He talked a lot about being an outsider and coming to terms with being an outsider. And again, I was reminded of this amazing movement, the outsider art movement, the art group movement that has to exist. So this is by Jean Dubuffet. It's painted in 1945. It has to exist because if we don't have the outsiders, creativity won't evolve, society won't evolve. And so what I've decided to do is to lean on this entire school of thought and 60 years worth of creativity to provide some guidance to the marketing community, to provide some guidance to the marketing community in terms of how can we can allow ourselves to be slightly weirder. People act normal in order to survive. That's the reality in society. We act normal to survive financially. We act normal to survive mentally. We act normal to survive socially. But it doesn't have to be that way. So I was head of innovation in loads of agencies all over the world for years. And what ended up happening was that I would be that person in the corner, kind of with jazz hands, wheeled out to do workshops, the one person that was charged with radical thinking, disruptive ideas. And I don't know if anyone has a similar setup. You have one head of innovation and they do all the crazy stuff. But that doesn't work in an organisation because what you do when you have that one person in the corner is you totally alienate them and you normalise mundane thinking in the rest of the business. So every time I was a head of innovation, inevitably I became kind of, embedded in company culture. And what I realised is if you put things in place that allows people to be a little bit weirder and allows people to be comfortable with being themselves a little bit more, they crave amazing ideas. They crave taking risks. And by doing this, I believe you can turn your mind from prison to prism. So I'm going to give you some examples of how that can be done. I have a load of examples, and I'm writing a book about this at the moment, but here's just a few. First of all, it's really, 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 really important to demonise groupthink in your organisation. I'm guessing most of you know what groupthink is. For those of you who don't, it's the process by which everyone just kind of says the same thing, particularly in a company, because they don't want conflict. They want to reach a consensus, and then what happens then is that ideas are inevitably really bland, and they've probably been done before, so they're easy to agree with. But really, This is the wonderful thing about the outsider art movement. Creativity should be all about the feeling, the passion, the gut instincts. That's the stuff that's supposed to drive ideas. Groupthink is in our industry everywhere. So BBH, I don't know if you saw this, a few years ago did an audit of straplines where brands said, find your brave, find your strong, find your happy, find your beach, find your whatever. Apparently there were hundreds of brands that had done that. Find your was their strapline. One thing that I've noticed now, and I don't know if you've noticed the same, is that everybody's reimagining everything. Have you noticed? So they're reimagining shoes. They're also reimagining your internet experience. And we're now reimagining frying pans. And really what they mean, all they mean is that they're just kind of changing it a bit. They're just making a few tweaks. But somehow, and people send me these examples all the time because I talk about it a lot on social media, somehow the groupthink has forced us all to talk in this same way. So in order to banish groupthink, what you need to do is you need to make a joke out of cliched ideas. Punish cliched ideas if you have to, because it's really, really important. The next tip I have, and I don't know how you feel about this, I think it's really important creatively to encourage alter egos. So the Latin translation of alter ego is your second self. And it's a version of yourself that obviously, I mean, you know, you've heard the phrase alter ego, slightly more creative, slightly more different, potentially slightly more eccentric. Does anyone, God, you'd be brave if you said yes, does anyone here have an alter ego? Oh my God, do you? Fuck, yeah, of course you do. It's amazing. I don't, but I'm going to, and I think it's going to involve wigs in some way. I'm still a work in progress. But the outsider art movement was filled with alter egos. I'm going to show you.
Once I started doing my hair, I really became the green lady. I think I'm addicted now. Everything needs to be green. I can't sleep unless it's green. Even my husband, who's not green, he loves it now. I always loved color, and for years I just wore different colors and different prints. I started adding little bits of green and mixing my nail polish, and it just kept growing. And it's probably been a while I've been green, maybe 16 to 20 years. My daily routine is I get up and I go in the kitchen and turn on all the lights and I see all the green and I go, oh, it's a happy day. Everybody always says, that's my favorite color. I say, but you're not wearing green.
She's somebody that people talk about.
She's a little eccentric, you know, the outfits, and I think everybody knows her.
How can she not be famous, dressed like that, walking up and down the street?
I've been here my entire life, and if I didn't see her around here, I would definitely feel there's something missing.
I think I've kind of created a wonderful world of green that is environmentally in and out and everywhere. Everybody accepts me as me and the fact that I am green. I'm always happier when I'm green. I was always happy young too, but I always moved on to the next color, and green is the best. I see myself in the future as the green lady.
So the green lady is iconic. You know, she's really famous in Brooklyn, in New York. Is she weird? I mean, only in the sense that some people might not, it might not make sense. Her lifestyle might not make sense to some people, but she's hugely creative, incredibly happy. She's created this world of her own that not only makes her content, but makes other people content too. Now, I'm not saying you have to be like that all the time, obviously, but you might want to dabble with, 20% of your time being an extra version of yourself, because actually some of the most creative people have an alter ego. It's actually a very normal thing. Beyonce, obviously, has Sasha Fierce, and Sasha Fierce is her persona on stage. She's just a bit fiercer, she has more authority, she has a slightly more kind of beautiful rage to her that she wouldn't have all the time. And David Bowie, interestingly, he had many different characters, but in reality, David Bowie was an alter ego. So there's a lovely quote from his wife, Iman, who said, she didn't even really know David Bowie. She knew the guy that he originally was, because David Bowie was just an alter ego that he created whenever he was in the public eye, but it allowed him to be a more creative, extra version of himself. Next, I think we need to create for outsiders. The way we talk about audiences in marketing is so clinical. It's so boring, but actually if you create for outsiders, sometimes your earned reach, the amount that people talk about it, can have an amazing impact on your brand. The wonderful thing about outsider artists is generally they act like the audience is invisible. So there's 3 rules to be an outsider artist. You have to have 3 things. First of all, you need to be completely original, so you can't have lifted any influences from anyone else. The second one is you have to be self-taught. Interestingly, so every single outsider artist was self-taught. And then the third one is you have to have created your work in isolation. And I think we create in groups way too much. I think there's a real power in creating something on your own, because then you don't have a filter, you don't have anyone judging you during the process. So acting like the audience is invisible is wonderful and really powerful, and then you commercialize like the audience is all there is. There's a load of outsider artists who have made a load of money by acting like the audience is invisible. So this is a piece from a guy called Henry Garber. He was in an asylum for feeble-minded children. How awful does that sound? From the age of 6. In the late 1800s, and then he lived and worked as a janitor for the rest of his life. When he died, his landlord went into his room and found a 15,000-page fairy tale that he'd written about this magical orphan child who lived in another realm, and he'd created this intricate, beautiful, ridiculous mural across 6 decades that no one saw until he died. And this piece got £700,000 in Christie's, $700,000, pounds, whatever. But when you create for outsiders, you can generate a huge amount of attention, even if people don't experience the thing you've made firsthand. So this is an underwater exhibition, the world's first, that's made only for divers. So it's the Museo Atlantico in Lanzarote, and only divers are able to go down and they can explore this museum, which is supposed to be like the intersection of art and nature and capitalism. So they have amazing installations about climate change and refugees and our addiction to technology. But you can also create content in a way that is so surreal that it alienates normal people, like I wonder if any of you remember this. It was from the 90s. Trevor Beatty's iconic kind of PlayStation ad that was made intentionally to alienate, pun intended, a number of people. I'm going to play it for you now.
Let me tell you what bugs me about human endeavour. I've never been the human in question. Have you? Mankind went to the moon. I don't even know where Grimsby is. Forget progress by proxy. Land on your own moon. It's no longer about what they can achieve out there in your behalf, but what we can experience up here in our own time. It's called mental wealth.
It was so weird. When's the last time you saw an ad like this? But it was so weird that it made the headlines, it was all over the news, and PlayStation sold out in like 4 days. I just don't think you'd see this kind of creativity anymore. Apart from the occasional, so this was in a poll of the weirdest ads of all time. It was in a Super Bowl ad break. And again, this ad targeted the outsiders, the lovers of strange internet-based mimetic humour. And they knew that those people would talk about this so much and share it so much that it was better than being mass and normal. I'm going to play.
Man, I might just chill tonight.
Puppy monkey baby. 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 Puppy monkey baby.
Mountain Dew Kickstart. Dew, juice, caffeine.
That's better than a preachy ad about now more than ever, these unprecedented times. Obviously, so ridiculously surreal that it was shared millions of times. This is what I think we should be gearing up towards. We're coming to the end now, so another tip for your teams, if you want your teams to be slightly weirder, normalise the oddity. So make odd, strange behaviours, positive, odd, strange behaviours, more normal in your organisation. If you can get a group of people to do a weird thing, but based on a shared behaviour or a shared belief, it can make it normal really, really quickly. Like the Penis Festival in Kawasaki in Japan, which is a yearly festival that's been around for centuries. So the old mythology is that a demoness would kill bad men with a metal penis. I don't want to interrogate that too much, but what that's become now is a yearly celebration of fertility. People who are slightly worried about their own fertility will go and they'll kind of hope for the best. Sex workers attend, kind of wishing for positive health, and it's become a really normal thing. Although to us, of course, we've never seen it before, it seems slightly weird, but it's a really positive event. The immersive theatre company Punch Drunk. Has anyone been to a Punch Drunk show? Did you go to, which one did you go to? Yeah. Was that the one in the car park? It was in the car park. Yes. So Punch Drunk curate these amazing, totally immersive theatrical experiences in really vast venues where everything is weird, nothing about it is normal. And in order to make sure that attendees, like there's hundreds at a time, in order to make sure they don't distract each other, they make you wear a mask that's like a plague doctor mask. So you can't see people's reactions, you can't hear people talking. And isn't it surprising how normal this becomes after just a few minutes? That oddity becomes normalised because everybody is doing it and it kind of makes sense. And finally, it's so important to doodle. The doodle is a far more powerful tool and process than any of us give it credit for. So in the art movement, the doodle is considered mediumistic. Kind of in and of itself, it's considered to be like a seance. It's a way of channeling that kind of natural, unthinking you. I truly believe that doodles are the link to your weirdest self when it's mindless. So across the art route, outside of art movement, you'll see hundreds of incredible, beautiful doodles that have been created by artists just playing. I love this quote. It's from Mahoob. He's still alive, outsider artist that kind of specialises in doodles. He says, "When I create, I let myself be guided by the energy that is released, and gradually I see shapes appear. A composition for me is like a dance or a ballet." One of the most famous outsider artists in history is a woman called Madge Gill. She did an amazing thing about outsider artists. They generally tend to start creating in later life at the age of 50, 60, 70, 80. She decided to create at the age of 50, and what was interesting about her is that she created all of her pieces with a spirit guide called Miranrest. I think that's how you pronounce it. But what she would do is she would sit and she would doodle, and she would tell everyone that she was kind of channeling this spirit guide that was guiding her to create these really eerie, kind of unsettling, but also incredibly beautiful pieces of art. And every single time she released a piece of art, she would also credit her spirit guide. It was weird to begin with, but after a while she did it so much it became normal. So what I'm saying is there's a huge amount of strength and bravery in just dreaming a bit first. Like, think about your next brainstorm that you have at work. Think about the next brief that you have. Allow yourself to work in isolation. Allow yourself to dream a bit first. Act like the audience is invisible, and then you can edit later. So, what did you doodle? Did anybody doodle? How was it? Did you do words, images? Actually, I'm sitting next to you, so I can come and see it. My eyesight's terrible. Cats.
And flowers.
Oh. Anyone else? Well, try and doodle a bit more today. Try and see what happens. Try and see if it makes you channel your slightly weirder self. Try living like that just for one day, just to see how it feels. And if you did doodle, I would love it if you shared it in social media with the hashtag WeirdSeance. And I hope you realise now that this isn't a toaster. It's the trapped soul of an 18th century princess who was forced into a piece of machinery by a wizard who was jealous of her gorgeous lips, and she was sentenced to spending her entire existence roaming around the busy streets of London, feeding toast to angry commuters, and the only way that she could release herself from this life of imprisonment was to find a friendly street entertainer who had a massive bubble machine and convince him to put her in a massive bubble so she could fly to Croydon and convince the wizard, which is that was where he lived, by feeding him really tasty crumpets to reverse the spell. Or not, but it was far more fun coming up with that than just saying the same thing that everybody else did. That's me. Thank you so much for listening. I know that was a lot, but I would love to carry on this conversation with you, so that's my email address if you want to get in touch. Thank you.